In a future Railfanning video, I'm going to make a replica of this train station. This is Netherwood in Plainfield, New Jersey. It is a local station. Only the local trains stop here. The express trains skip it. This is on the Raritan Valley Line of New Jersey Transit. I actually have some very interesting stories about living in this area. But first, here's a story about a historic event I witnessed when I was a kid, back in 1999. This is the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse, and in 1999, I actually witnessed it being moved 1,600 feet from the coastline to protect its foundation from being destroyed by water. I actually remember seeing the lighthouse being lowered onto its final location. I actually did not know that they were moving this lighthouse when I was a kid. My assumption was that they tore down the old one and were simply building a new one in its place. Because I thought, how would they be able to move something this large? Like, I couldn't even fathom the possibility of this ever happening. But later I found out it actually was moved, and how they did it was actually pretty interesting. They put it on a series of rails. They put a platform on the rail, simply like, pretty much like a train, and they just rolled it into place. Then they lowered it onto its new foundation. That night we went to the Bodie Island Lighthouse, located a few miles, well, not really a few miles, probably like somewhere between 20 and 40 miles north of the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse. I was very excited as a kid because it was my first time seeing a lighthouse lighting up at night. You see, I've only seen them in movies. In movies, they're always, rotating, but when I came to this lighthouse, I noticed something very interesting about it. This one was not rotating. It simply turned on and off like a regular light bulb. This lighthouse actually has a very interesting flash characteristic at night. It goes on for 2.5 seconds and then off for 2.5 seconds. Then again, it goes on for 2.5 seconds and off for 2.5 seconds. Then it goes dark for 22.5 seconds, and then the cycle repeats. As a kid, this used to puzzle me because when it got to the part where it would go out for 22.5 seconds, I would be like, "What's going on? Did it completely go out? Like, are ships in danger of crashing onto the shore? Like, what happened to it?" Later, I found out that it was supposed to do that. That's part of the flash characteristic, which is a unique way in which a lighthouse flashes, so that at night you can tell it apart from another lighthouse. This lighthouse has always been pretty interesting to me as a kid because it has a flash characteristic that I've never seen before and never have seen since. You're always seeing lighthouses rotate in movies, but you will never see one simply turning on and off like this one. So to me, this lighthouse was a very rare and interesting thing. Anyway, so here are a few interesting stories from growing up in Plainfield, New Jersey, near this train station. This is a hill on one side of the station. We used to always roll down this hill when we got off the train. We actually lived on near this side of the station, which is the High Bridge bound track. This one is track 2, which goes to Newark. So let's see if I can find the place I actually lived at. It's 4 blocks away. Oh yeah, that reminds me. When I was a kid, I almost got hit by a car at this very intersection because there was a car going this way. He had his right turn signal on, so I assumed he was turning, but he did not turn. My parents pulled me out of the way just in time. And I thought to myself, well, why are you going to have your right turn signal on if you're going to go straight through the intersection? Like, you literally almost killed me. And you could have you could have killed someone else with that kind of habit. Yeah. New Jersey is filled with dangerous drivers like that. So yeah, 4 blocks away from this train station is where I used to live. Let's see, where is it? That's East 3rd Street. This is East 2nd Street. I used to live underneath this Chinese restaurant. I actually remember there used to be a laundromat here. And like it was under construction and they were about to open it. We were so excited because we used to hand wash our clothes and we were like, yay, we're not gonna have to hand wash our clothes anymore. But it never opened. So that's the apartment we actually used to live in. It actually looked a lot worse than that when we lived there because we had a terrible landlord and they refused to fix the place up. There actually used to be a church over here. Not sure what they have here now. And we used to live next to this Chinese restaurant. And we used to sometimes go down here to get food. I remember every single day at exactly 6 o'clock, I would always be waken up by a car alarm. It was always the exact same car at the exact same time, leading me to think it was deliberate. Also, one night when we were sleeping in this apartment, someone actually walked up to our car and threw a brick through the back window. Like they weren't even trying to steal from the car, they just wanted to damage it for some reason. Apparently New Jersey is filled with people like that. In fact, I actually remember being warned, be careful when you're in New Jersey because you know, there are dangerous people here. We actually had a very grumpy neighbor when we lived here. She used to duct tape insults to our door. which I thought was pretty interesting because I've never had a neighbor that did that. There's actually a funny thing about this street. We used to have so much trouble calling a cab to this location because every time we would say we lived on East 2nd Street, they would get that confused with East 7th Street and go to that address instead. Then a while later we were like, hey, where's our cab? We called a while ago and it hasn't showed up yet. And then they would repeat the address to us as East 7th Street, and then we'd be like, no, we live on East 2nd Street. And this happened on several occasions too. Specifically when calling the blue cab. I actually had a very interesting experience at this apartment. Behind this apartment is a dumpster. I used to use that dumpster to take out the trash. But one day, I was taking out the trash, I opened the dumpster, and there are maggots all over me. That was a truly traumatic experience for me as a kid because I could not eat ramen noodles for years after that. I actually remember being extremely terrified when that happened. The ceiling in this apartment actually crashed down more times than I can remember. I actually remember our parents would always complain to the landlord about the ceiling falling down. They would solve the problem by putting up a new ceiling, but the problem was the roof was leaking, so the ceiling would just keep coming down again. And I actually think I remember my parents trying to explain to the landlord, the problem is not the ceiling, the roof is leaking. Like, even if you put the ceiling up, you're not solving the problem, you're just prolonging it. Like, you need to fix the roof first. But they refuse to fix the roof for some reason. And I'm like, wouldn't it be cheaper to just fix the roof so that the ceiling would stop falling? Like why are they doing this to themselves? Like, isn't it more work on their part to just keep putting the ceiling up? I've actually had a few close calls with that ceiling too. Like, one day I was putting my art supplies in a drawer, then I left to go back and go to the bathroom. Then I came back, and the ceiling had crashed right where I would have been. I mean, it was just a tile ceiling, and tiles are very lightweight, so it probably wouldn't have hurt, but I don't know. But, you know, the ceiling was also wet, so that probably made it heavier. One night, I had woken up to find that pretty much all of the ceiling in my room had crashed down all around me. The only reason why it didn't hit me was because I happened to have a bunk bed, and that was basically shielding me. So yeah, I actually had a few close calls with that ceiling at that apartment, which was specifically why I did not like living there. I actually have another interesting story, but this one happens in Hoboken. It's about a time when we actually got lost on the PATH train trying to get home. So we took the train to Hoboken to visit an aunt, We were on our way home, and someone decides, and someone gets the idea to take the PATH train instead of New Jersey Transit, which is the method we usually use. Now, as a kid, I was the go-to person for train-related directions on how to get to a specific place. I had memorized all the stops on the New Jersey Transit system, but I was not familiar with the PATH line, so I wasn't really sure which one to take in order to get to where we needed to go. And I wasn't really sure how to read destination signs on subway cars at the time. So, we get on a PATH train, we end up in Exchange Place. Then we get another one, and we end up in Harrison. Then at that point we give up and ask for directions on how to get to Newark. And then someone finally tells us, oh, you just need to take the PATH train one stop and you'll be there. Then we end up on platform H in Newark, and we take the New Jersey Transit train home. We actually would have gotten there faster had we taken New Jersey Transit because of all the time we spent being lost on the system. We actually got there later than we would have. I actually remember telling them, hey, I'm not very familiar with the PATH train. We should probably take New Jersey Transit instead because I know exactly which one to take. But no one listened to me, probably because I was a kid. This is Plainfield Station, just one station east of us in Scotch Plains, New Jersey. This station, there's nothing really special about the station except it has a walkover bridge. And whenever we got off at this station, we would always very quickly walk onto this bridge so that we could feel the exhaust coming from the diesel locomotives as they departed the station. I remember it was a very nice, warm feeling in the winter. And even in summer months, it felt nice. It was also a very interesting smell, too. The smell of diesel being burnt. So, this is Roselle Park Station. But what in the world is this? Looks like a very poorly drawn train. Maybe, I'm guessing a train was driving by this station when the picture was taken. Yeah, it looks like it collided with something. Look at it. It's all bent up and out of shape. This looks like it's probably an Out 45 DP, so this is probably a pretty recent photo. But what is this thing? Anyway, if you look at this station closely, you'll notice that there are 4 rails next to the platform. I remember when I was a kid, I actually asked the engineer what were the other 2 rails for. He explained to me that freight trains are wider than passenger trains, so they need these 2 rails to switch them further away from the platform so that they won't collide with it. He told me that if they were accidentally switched onto these closer 2 rails, it could actually hit the platform. That's why there are 2 rails here. Which is interesting because there are only 2 rails on this side of the platform. I'm guessing that platform isn't as close to the tracks.